Hi, welcome to Branded. Today our topic is pornography. This is a really controversial subject. We'd like to give light on some truths. I'm going to do an introduction, and today we have Kathleen Wynn as our special guest. Kathleen is an advocate for law enforcement and those who seek to dismantle the sex trade industry. As a former community outreach and education director for Arizona Attorney General Office, Kathleen has helped write laws that protect survivors and make it more difficult for those engaging in sexual exploitation. Project 25 seeks to end sexual exploitation by 2025. It is time to stop exploitation and rape for profit. One of the projects of Project 25 is VAST, which stands for Valley Against Sex Trafficking. VAST works to equip, educate, and inform our community against this ongoing evil. Kathleen has dedicated her life to this mission. I also know that Kathleen was a part of a team that helped take down Backpage, which is an internet site for predators, and now is working hard to bring down some more of the bad guys. So Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Gina.
And then we also have Mariah. So we thought that this episode would be great because Kathleen that works tirelessly in this industry, and Mariah that has experience in this deep industry. Pornhub is a pornography website. It was launched in 2017. In 2019, there were over 42 billion visits to this website, which means an average of 115 million visits per day, which equates to more people logging onto Pornhub than Amazon, Twitter, and Netflix combined. No one better to share this information than Kathleen and Mariah, so I'm going to leave the floor to them.
Thank you. So Mariah, it's great to meet you.
Yes, it's so nice to meet you.
And as a survivor of trafficking, what can you tell us about the intersection of being trafficked and pornography for people that don't understand that there's an intersection?
Well, one of the things that me and Gina have talked about before is that a lot of people don't understand that these girls or people who are in these porn videos, they are under the influence of a trafficker or a pimp. They have someone who's telling them, go here and do this for to be shot on video just as much as in private behind doors. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding that the two kind of go hand in hand. And porn, I mean, maybe not every single person. Some people might do it for different reasons, but a lot of these young, I don't know how to say it, not young people, not girls. I don't want to say girls because I know it's boys too. Individuals, a lot of them are being influenced by someone who has control over them.
So the definition of exploitation or trafficking is force, fraud, or coercion. Mm-hmm. So would you say that people that are participating in pornography, 80%, 90%, how many of the people that are participating in porn are forced to be there?
Especially if you're factoring in coercion, which, I mean, is more of a difficult thing to pinpoint, but I mean, for anybody who doesn't know, it's just like someone kind of suggesting and talking you into something that you wouldn't normally do. And so adding that in, I would say almost all of them, because I don't think, and we've said this before, I don't think that anyone just wakes up and is like, I'm going to go do that. You know, like it's something that someone has put the idea there and showed you the avenues to go to get there. Like you don't just start doing that, you know, especially if you're a young person, you know. I truly believe that even if you get to a place where you're not under the influence of a trafficker or a pimp, at some point someone directed you to this kind of life. I don't think that people just think it up themselves.
And to that end, there's just an incredible amount of pornography out there. So how does porn interact with a trick or a date or a hookup? So is porn used a lot in the facilitation when you were being bought and sold? So was porn a part of that?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, in my experience, you know, we had kind of both parts of it. My traffickers would have the girls watch it in order to like I don't know, kind of be like
Tutorial.
accustomed, yeah, like a tutorial to the life that you're about to live and what you're about to be doing. And then also the buyers, a lot of times, so many times, more than I could count, would have something that they saw on a video that basically they just wanted a warm body to act out on. And because I was out there, you know, and they didn't look behind the the picture that I was showing, like, yeah, I'm here, how are you today, you know, the happy whatever part of it, they didn't look any further to see that I was being influenced to be there and to say these kind of things. I was being trained how to talk to them, how to enact these things for them. They didn't think about that. And so all their in that moment, they were thinking about this fantasy that they have from something that they've seen. And like you said, it's not even real. It's not reality. It's an acting. And so that for me happened more times than I could count personally.
And I'm so sorry about that. And what we know is like Pornhub has, if you know, we talk about binge watching. If you were to sit down tonight and watch Pornhub, it would take 785 years to see every film that they have. So we can't ever live long enough to see all the videos that there are. And so we know that people are producing them. There's a huge market. It's a multi-billion-dollar market, and it's shaping the culture, and it's shaping relationships. So when and thank you for sharing this. I mean, these aren't not good memories. And I really appreciate your candidness today, because it takes something, it takes courage. So thank you. I have to believe it's impersonal. There's no relationship there. It's just performing an action, right? There's no connectedness to the person that you're with. They're bringing you a tutorial basically and saying, please recreate this.
Yeah.
Is that what was happening?
So for me as a woman, I think that because we are so like relational, we look for, especially if it's with a man, we look for that intimacy of it. We look for that personalization of it. And I think one of the most difficult things for me that I've talked about a little is that it was like nobody cared who I was. Not the trafficker didn't care how I felt or what I was thinking or, you know, what happened. And then the buyers, or even the few times that I was introduced to the porn industry, you know, the other people in the video, the producers, none of them cared anything about who I was or how I felt or what was going on with me. So it was like out of self-preservation, I had to learn and teach myself how to detach, I used to call it like I was just an empty shell. And everything that made up me, my heart, my mind, my feelings, my thoughts, I had to just shove them away because there's no place for them in that world. Those things are used against you in that world. And so it was one of the most difficult things because, yes, sex is an intimate, personal thing. And when you're doing it or being influenced to do it so many times a day with different people, and nobody even wants to know your real name, like they don't care, even the fake name that you tell them, they don't care about. And so it makes it to where you have to, in order to protect yourself, find a way to just exist physically, but everything that is behind that has to be like buried, I guess. And it's hard.
It is hard. I've had a lot of survivors tell me that when this was happening to them, that they would be there physically, but mentally they were someplace else. They would go to a corner of the room, or they would go someplace in their head or whatever, just to survive. And one of the things that I suspect, not sure, and maybe you don't know, but the buyers, obviously when you're filming and there's producers and that's staged, but did the buyers really not understand what they were doing, or were they naive, or did they understand what they're doing? Because I think there's a group of people that think, oh, this is just casual, or this is just how culture is. But what would you say about buyers that participate in this?
I think it's a little of both. I think there are some people who know that what they're doing is wrong, know that, this person may not be what they're presenting, and they don't care because it's self-gratification. But I think that there's a lot of people out there who, you know, because I've said before to Gina, like I was trained to go and tell you, oh, I'm so happy to see you today. Like, how are you? And be like that, because that's what they want. That's what they're paying for. They want somebody to be, you know, happy and nice to them or whatever, and do whatever they want you to do. And so if you went in there sad and broken and depressed, like they wouldn't pay you. And so I think that there's so many of them that don't understand. You may see this picture that I painted for you, but behind that canvas is a black hole of pain. And if you don't decide to see that, or decide to acknowledge that it's there, everything is, you can detach from that and just tell yourself, no, it's not that, or it wasn't like that with her. But 9 times out of 10, it was probably like that with her too. And so for me, like just seeing, knowing how I was feeling on the inside, and knowing how I had to present myself and how polar opposite they were, I can't really expect someone to off bat be able to say like, oh no, you're not okay, because I looked okay, I acted okay, but I was also forced to do that. Like there was also somebody who was like, if you don't act this way, if you don't put a smile on your face, if you don't go do your makeup and get,
You'd have consequences
I
after.
would have consequences. And so I think that it's both.
So let's just say what I'm seeing, and what is fearful for me as a mother of daughters and a mother of granddaughters. I have grandsons and sons, but what I see is a normalization in the culture of sending pictures of body parts, of getting money for body parts, of going online and just creating and producing your own films, because there's such a demand for it. If we think about all the money that gets exchanged for pornography. So what would you say, having come through the other side, and what would you say to young girls who are selling themselves, who are promoting their body parts, who are selling images of themselves? Is it a good way to make money? Is it a way to promote yourself? What are the consequences of that? And some of it you didn't have a choice about.
Yeah.
So, but if I'm a young person and I have a choice, what would your advice be? Because you've had to deal with a lot of the impact emotionally, physically, and thank God you're 5 years out of it. Just really thank you for sharing. So, what would your advice be to young people who are considering selling images of themselves, their bodies? What would you say to them?
And with that, Kathleen and Mariah, what comes to my mind is the desensitizing of values and morals. And we would never do that way back when, fully covered. And now it's not a big deal to walk around nude and show parts and send parts. And so, yes, what would you tell these young girls on TikTok and all these social media platforms that or we have a boyfriend, send me this and they send you that,
Well, I definitely think that, as you said, like desensitization, it's strange because I read a thing that said a few years back that was talking about how when you watch porn, it's like if you watch a video of, we'll just something more innocent seeming, I guess, like, just two people together, whatever, it's like relationship, that will no longer satisfy you after a while. And then you move on to, I don't know, a group or whatever. And you kind of go down this rabbit hole, if you will, or however you say that, where it's like, it has to be more perverse because the normal things stop satisfying that urge. And so I think that speaks to like why there are so many videos. You said it would take us 7 times over our lifetimes to watch them all. And it's because like once you watch this thing one time, that no longer works. You need to move to something
doesn't
else.
satisfy you
Yeah, it
anymore.
doesn't satisfy you anymore. And so for me, just giving advice to other girls who might not see the whole picture of it, I would just say, you know, today that might be something that gets you attention, but tomorrow you're going to have to, what do we talk about? Stretch your boundary more.
Right.
You know, you're going to have to go to another limit if you want that same kind of attention. And before you know it, you know, you're doing things that,
You're in a place that you never thought you would
yeah,
be in, starting from
yeah,
So one of the things that I know that drives this, and you're pointing to it, but it's addiction. So
Yeah.
if you start to have to do something, you absolutely have to do it, you're addicted.
yeah,
So what we know is that anybody that watches porn will watch it, and then they will want it to be different, or they'll want it to change, or they'll escalate it, or then they need to act it out, which and then depending on how that goes, then there's a whole series of levels of clubs, of subclubs, of all kinds of perverse things that can happen. The other thing about the addictive part is that it does release chemicals and changes the dynamic of a brain. So that we know that in the study of the brain, when people watch pornography, there's actually physical changes that are taking place that are detrimental, especially to young brains, to people that brains that aren't fully formed. So young male and young female brains don't fully form till they're 25. So what we know is that we have a whole generation coming up on porn, and it's affecting how their brains are working. Just even with the cell phones, anybody can have access to anything right now. So we need to really look at, is the content suitable for people that are under a certain age, and what is it actually doing to the growth in the brain development, which no one really wants to talk about, except that it's having negative impacts. And I'm hoping with all the health and all the concern about our bodies, that one of the things we can look at is how is pornography affecting our mental health, but also our physical health, and how our bodies grow and how we change. And I think that we see a lot of aggression, we see a lot of depression. And if a brain isn't allowed to normally grow and function the way it was designed to grow, what contribution does porn have to that? And I don't have that answer, but I think you can see with people getting more aggressive that there are things that people are not balanced right now. The dynamic for the most part is young people want to make other people in their world, their peer group, happy with them. So they'll do things, and we talked about this previously about boundaries being expanded. So I just think that the pornography is a gateway to a lot of other exploitation of. I had a case last weekend where dad was showing his young daughter porn, and then being nude around her, and so dad got removed from the care. He could no longer care for his daughter. So porn has effects that we don't even realize. And I so appreciate you being candid about how, while being trafficked, that just kind of that pornography got interwoven into what you were doing. And I think we need to fight harder to get porn out of the hands of, for sure, the young people, because I think it's shaping relationships.
And I don't think that young girls, even the ones who may not be influenced to the degree that I was, but, you know, are just thinking like, oh, it's easy money, you know, it doesn't mean anything, are not realizing that later on in their life, like, they may want a job, or they may want a relationship, or, you know, something, and this interfere and come up and not only be embarrassing, but hurtful.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of young people live in the moment. They don't think about what they do today and how it's going to influence tomorrow. Certainly, your life has been extreme, and you have survived it and come across. And just thank you for sharing that, because that is hurtful. But people today that are living out carelessly or carefully or however, but they're doing things that are harming themselves, don't know the ultimate impact. So if you're a young girl and all of a sudden you meet the man of your dreams, but then this thing on Pornhub, they are storing everything. They are the ship for all of this content. You could destroy your life. And is it worth it for a moment today to bring the kind of pain that you talked about. And I think that that could be devastating. And you've handled it with a lot of grace and maturity. But I really want people to take away that lesson that you just shared. That was a very, very important lesson, that doing that can have lifelong harm in your life. It's like drinking a little bit of poison. That poison is in your system. And is it worth it for whatever you think you're going to get? So that the cost is way worse, the cost is way worse than the payoff.
You know, Mariah, thank you so much for sharing your side of it, because that is a side that is never heard and that needs to be heard.
I think that pornography needs to be restricted. I think that pornography, there will be those that argue that it's freedom of speech and that can be out there. So, but it needs to be for adults. I would say if pornography is what you're using to fix your relationship, that what's wrong in your relationship, pornography can't fix. And that pornography is fake. And I would tell people, I would tell people to fight for love, because love is so much more intimate and real and valuable. And that to just have fake body parts to incentivize you to have, physical sensations, there's nothing you can take away from that will hold in your heart. And that we as a people and we as a culture are hurting so much right now. To do more things that desensitize us to each other is probably one of the most dangerous things I can think that we are doing in our culture. And exploitation of one another is the worst thing that we can do. So I will fight with everything I have to stop the exploitation of human bodies, of people hurting people, and people using sex as a weapon and a tool for fake power that isn't theirs. And so that's what I would say.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for watching today. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you next time.